We made it.
We did.
We're here.
Yep.
We
had some fun.
A little
Yeah.
worse for the wear, but it was all in service of a celebration.
Yes. We jetted over to the Zohran Mamdani speech last night. I mean, we made it by the skin of our teeth, basically.
Yep.
Sam did a lot of work plowing us through crowds. I've never seen you with such determination before.
I wanted to go see it. You know, we walked all the way over there.
Well, that's how you know you're a longtime New Yorker. You have that like power walk down, getting through crowds. But we made it. And then some nice woman who I think manages the Paramount bought me some tequila shots. So, you know, a little bit of a headache today, but I am very happy overall.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun when we got to see the speech. But of course, last night, it's hard to come up with a scenario where things could have gone better for Democrats. And there's a lot of actually, like I say, you know, we had said this last night. There are a lot of material implications from these races, but there's also a lot of implications, both in terms of what it is predictive of in the midterms, but almost more importantly than it being predictive in the midterms, it does send a message to all political players, essentially, ranging from Trump to Mike Johnson to Democrats in the Senate contemplating caving on the shutdown, to Democrats across the country. They all will take messages from this, and they will behave in ways that, in some instances, that we like, and in other ways that may be, difficult. We may see federal troops sooner than later, but we will get to that as the show progresses. Last night, we trudged over after it was called. The race was called. The mayor race was called. I think by that point, we also it was an early call for Virginia and New Jersey.
Yeah.
There was still some extant things. We had spoken about Daniel Nicanor about a seat up in the Bronx. I think it was a state Senate seat that had gone Republican, flipped back to Democrats. I mean, just across the board.
Yeah. The only maybe bad news from last night, it seems like Omar Fateh is set up to not end up, pulling out that race. But he made it close. They're going to the second round in ranked choice voting here. So, but everything else in terms for the Democrats, just clean sweep.
Republicans got wiped out.
Out. I mean, we'll talk about the Virginia House of Delegates at another point. Yep. But they went from 51 seats to 64. It's going to be an enormous benefit to, Spanberger as the governor there.
Here is a part of Zohran Mamdani's speech. It was probably the first speech, at least in my lifetime, that was covered by the news, where it started, and Frank at any point probably quoted Eugene Debs. In another part, he also quotes another political figure. We will talk about that later. But here is Mamdani talking about the nature of this win in the context of immigrants. Zohran Mamdani, I think it's in the history of New York City, is the first mayor to ever come from Queens, who lives in Queens. Good.
To you without condescension, we can usher in a new era of leadership. We will fight for you because we are you. Or as we say on Steinway, ana minkum wa ilaykum. Thank you to those so often forgotten by the politics of our city who made this movement their own. I speak of Yemeni bodega owners and Mexican abuelas, Senegalese taxi drivers and Uzbek nurses, Trinidadian line cooks and Ethiopian aunties, aunties. Yes, aunties.
The speech was, I have to say, this speech was pretty aggressive. It was interesting because a lot of times you'll see candidates come up and sort of project a certain conciliatory approach towards who they've run against. And Mamdani did a different thing. He was still very aggressive towards Andrew Cuomo and who he beat. And then he was very humble when it came to talking about all the people that helped him. It was pretty impressive. Here is part two, or another clip, I should say, where he addresses, and Andrew Cuomo closed out his closing argument was, I'm the only one who can keep Donald Trump out of New York City. As you know, Donald Trump endorsed Cuomo in the last day. And I think it actually was effective because Curtis Lewa was, Mamdani got about the number that he was polled around. Curtis Lewa was projected anywhere from 15 to 21 points. He ended up with 7. And I think that difference went to Andrew Cuomo, because, maybe in part because of Trump's endorsement. So a lot of Cuomo's votes came from Republicans, in addition to some small, or I said mid-sized percentage of Democrats. But here is Mamdani addressing Donald Trump.
Together, we will usher in a generation of change. And if we embrace this brave new course, rather than fleeing from it, we can respond to oligarchy and authoritarianism with the strength it fears, not the appeasement it craves. After all, if anyone can show a nation betrayed by Donald Trump how to defeat him, it is the city that gave rise to him. And if there is any way to terrify a despot, it is by dismantling the very conditions that allowed him to accumulate power. This is not only how we stop Trump, it's how we stop the next one. So Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, I have 4 words for you. Turn the volume up.
I mean, seeing it like this is just different than how we were able to watch last night. Like, there's I'm fighting back tears slightly. It's just incredible to see this, this response to Donald Trump from the city, this courage.
Well, it's also courage, but I mean, this is a really important, in addition to him basically saying to Trump, F you, bring it, we're ready, which I think, frankly, New Yorkers, I think when they bring the federal troops, and they will, and they may actually do it, even sooner, not just because Mamdani won, but because Democrats ran the board in the way that they did. They're going to have to sort of juice whatever their plans were.
Make an example.
Make an example, but also they want to create chaos.
Yeah.
What they want is images of, of fighting and this and that, because they think that will in turn drive their voters out to maintain control. I mean, that's the sort of old recipe. Whether that works or not is another question. But what's really interesting that Mamdani is talking about here, that I think is, to the extent that there's a contrast between his win and Spanberger and Cheryl's win, just because that's what the media is sort of setting up that issue. And there is, I mean, there were wins last night for every part of the Democratic Party, but I think the difference is in there is not just in him saying, bring it, Donald Trump, F you, because I think to some extent they're all saying that. Yeah. The difference comes in when he says the conditions that allowed him to accumulate power. Saying that the problem of Trump predates Trump.
Right. To prevent the next one.
To prevent the next one.
Yes.
And again, like on both sides of it, Trump is just the guy who's in that slot now. But there were conditions that were created prior to Trump being here that naturally led to Trump. And there could be, those conditions need to be addressed. And
the conditions were the ones that were opposing him. The two-front war against him that we'll play this clip of AOC later. But it was both the old guard Democratic establishment and the Republican Party. It is capital that was against him. And he won against enormous odds with, he did crack 50%, which was really important, meaning even if every Sliwa vote, every Adams vote went to Cuomo, he still would have eked out a victory. But and in that context, think about that. The millions and millions of dollars that were spent against him and the establishment of both political parties that were opposing him on Islamophobic grounds, but also because they wanted this not to be the first domino to fall in a class consciousness within the Democratic Party and the base here.
Here is, do we have this clip?
This is the immigrant one? Yeah.
Okay, more from Zohran Mamdani's
this might have been my favorite line.
Victory speech.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of great lines, but we've been talking about how the Democratic Party has failed our immigrant neighbors by not making a positive case for immigration, and how they've seeding the framing on immigration has resulted in, disastrous consequences, major human rights, civil rights violations across this country, abuse, torture of people by this administration. And on the federal level, you're still not seeing a positive case being made for this is a country built by immigrants. And so I found this quote by this part of Zohran's speech to be really important.
That when working people have ironclad rights.
Oh, Matt's been watching YouTube again at 2.5 speed.
Oh, man.
The bosses who seek to extort them become very small indeed. New York will remain a city of immigrants, a city built by immigrants, powered by immigrants, and as of tonight, led by an immigrant. So hear me, President Trump, when I say this. To get to any of us, you will have to get through all of us.
Fix the code.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I thought.
When we enter City Hall in 58 days, expectations will be high. We will meet them. A great New Yorker once said that while you campaign in poetry, you govern in prose. If that must be true, let the prose we write still rhyme, and let us build a shining city for all.
I want to just pause it there. I just want you to note that he sort of he sort of corrected that quote. Right? I mean, he sort of said, if a great New Yorker once said, you campaign in poetry and you govern in prose, and if that's the case, let's upgrade our prose. Yeah. And on some level, he's also saying, even that quote falls short a little bit. I can improve that quote. That quote is from a politician from New York State, who was a former governor named Mario Cuomo, who was, before he passed away, Andrew Cuomo's father,
Yeah.
who was responsible for everything Andrew Cuomo has. From his job at HUD, from his job as New York State Attorney General, to ultimately his job as a former disgraced governor, Nepo baby. And I seem to remember, and someone can fact check me on this, but I think if you look up, one of the things I remember reading about Andrew Cuomo's 50th birthday, and that must have been 15, 20 years ago, was that his dad didn't show up at the birthday.
Oh.
So that's got to hurt. Now, I think
Amazing.
the idea, and this is one of the things I really enjoyed. At one point, Mamdani, at the beginning of the speech, says the name Andrew Cuomo, basically says bye-bye. And then he says, and that's also the last time I'm ever going to utter his name.
Yep.
And then he won't even attribute the quote to Cuomo because he's not going to say that name. And the thing is that most people
Won't get it.
won't get it.
Yep.
But Andrew Cuomo will.
This is like something you would pull. I mean, this
It
is so
that is,
Sam.
I would say that is something that I would
This
do.
is
Yes.
so you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I love
Only Mamdani and Andrew Cuomo
Yes.
needs to be aware of that dagger that he just is stuck into his belly.
and that is why part of what's been so amazing about this campaign is that he never let his foot off the gas with Andrew Cuomo. I've made this point before, but contrast that with what Tim Walz and the Kamala Harris campaign were doing. Like, Walz is particularly egregious because he came out swinging so strong against J.D. Vance, and then on the debate stage was just like, I agree. No. Never let your foot off the gas. Never get defensive. Always be on offense. And his Zohran'S disdain for Andrew Cuomo, I can't read his mind. But to me, it reads like somebody who is just so disgusted by his complete lack of interest in public service and in the people that he says he wants to represent. The level of entitlement that just oozes out of Cuomo is so antithetical to everything that Zohran stands for. And that's why Zohran's in the streets. That's why Zohran did a hunger strike with taxi cab drivers over the medallion thing. Like, he's of the people. And Andrew Cuomo could not be less of the people, and yet still felt so entitled to that position. Like, that's got to be something that must bother or must fuel
I will tell
Zohran.
you that I sat in a room, I don't know if it was like 12 years ago. It was in the run-up to Zephyr Teachout challenging Cuomo in the Democratic primary. And I sat in a room with about, I would say, 50 various New York State organizations, like activists who worked with folks living in poverty, service people, homelessness in the state, food insecurity, labor, all across the board. 50 of them in a room. And their intense anger at Andrew Cuomo, with the way that Andrew Cuomo, not even like they were just like, we just can't even imagine someone who's a Democrat hurting the most vulnerable. That is baseline Democratic philosophy, is like, we're not going to change anything structurally, but we're going to provide a safety net. And so people are going to fall, and but we're not going to let them starve on the streets. And Andrew Cuomo was the type of like, I'll let them starve on the streets.
Yeah.
If it doesn't impact me politically, if it helps me politically, that's what I'll do. And they were, I can't remember who I don't know if it was Lee Zeldin at that time. I can't remember, or it was another guy, Carl, who had a baseball bat, like some weird, I can't remember who it was the candidate. But, I don't think it was Pataki. I can't remember. But they were like, we might rather have a Republican, because then at least we can sort of like, we have our a natural sort of like leverage to fight against a Republican. But with Cuomo, he was so transactional and had bullied like any of these sort of like natural allies for folks who were working in those areas. They hated Cuomo. They hated Cuomo. And I imagine, Mamdani at that point was probably 18.
Palladino?
It was Palladino.
Yeah.
And Carl Palladino, right? I think it was.
Carl.
And I would imagine, though, having sort of like cut his teeth in New York politics amongst those people who advocate for folks who are the most immiserated, the most powerless, the most marginalized, he got that sense of Cuomo by osmosis.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it just oozes out of Cuomo. And then just back to the immigrant quote. I hope some national Democrats start speaking this way. Like, I don't know what needs to happen. I mean, ICE is terrorizing communities right now. Can we have the backs of our neighbors, please? Please, rhetorically, even if we're not in power right now. It's really, really important that national Democrats start to speak this way. But who knows? Maybe this whole crop, a lot of them are just incapable, and the only thing that's going to change anything is primary challenges and turnover.
Yeah, I think it's the latter. But hope springs eternal. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.